Hello everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I haven't got a very loud voice. You can hear. You're at the front. Yep, brilliant. Okay, so I'm Sebah Chaudhry, Creative Project Manager at Curated Place, and we're based in Manchester. Just want to say that public speaking isn't my strongest attribute, so please be patient with me and maybe throw a smile or two my way. That would be great. So I'm going to talk to you about my background, where I've been working, my current job and projects. So I was born and raised in Birmingham. Is anyone here from Birmingham? Oh, no Burmese here. Anna? Just one? Yeah, very good. So I studied photography as a GCSE at school. I also did a course in media studies, and I really enjoyed it, and I kind of wanted to go into photography. I was not very good at academically. I didn't really like studying and that kind of thing, but I really liked the practical elements. So I studied as a GCSE, and then I went to college. I did a BTEC National Diploma in Photography. At the same time as that, I started working at Jessop's at the photo lab, where actually I met Emma. I was just sitting at the back of one of the lecturers here in the photography departments. So while I was at college, I started thinking about work experience, and I wanted to kind of work in photography, but I didn't really know much about photography, so I decided to apply for some jobs and things, or just experience. So there's a place in Birmingham called the Custard Factory. It used to be a custard factory, it's now been converted into offices and art places. So I emailed every single person, every single organisation that was based there, just to find out if I can get some experience and things. I didn't get many responses, but I got one response from a place called Rhubarb, which is a festival of the image photography. Sorry, it's a bit blurry. So I didn't know much about Rhubarb at the time, and I kind of got... So they had a festival every year for like a few days, and they have a portfolio review where you go and students and photographers get their work reviewed by experts from around the world. So I went and volunteered there for a week, and I really, really loved it. I wasn't sure what it would be like, but I met some great people, and I got to pick up people from the airport, work in exhibitions and install exhibitions. So it was a huge variety of things that I worked on, and and I really, really enjoyed it. And I went back and volunteered the next year. So alongside this, I was working at Jessop's, and I was also at college, and then I started university. I started working at I went to university at University of Wolverhampton. I didn't really enjoy the course, and it was a difficult time for me in my sort of personal life, so I dropped out. It's maybe one of my only maybe regrets that I wish I'd gone back to university and kind of finished it. But I did learn a lot in my professional kind of experience. I've learned a lot, so but in a way I kind of wish that I'd finished it. So what are the benefits of volunteering? Does anyone kind of tell me any ideas?
You can gain experience.
Gain experience? That's my first one, well done. Anything else?
Networks.
Networks, yep. Yeah, so you get to know the industry, build confidence. That's a really important one. So I think you go and you kind of... I was a very shy individual. When I sort of grew up in an all kind of Asian environment, and I went to college and it was like all white environment, and it's a very big change for me, and I didn't really know how to adjust to that properly, and working at Jessop's and volunteering really kind of helped me kind of get out there and build my confidence. Make contacts. So you make contacts with people in the industry, but also people get to know you too. So you should make a lasting impression. Really kind of work hard, and volunteering these days. I know the students, they go to these places and they want to work for an hour here, an hour there, but you don't really get to know the industry or people or make contacts, and if you're just there for a few hours here and there. You have to really make the most of volunteering and experiences, because you're at university now. This is the time when you kind of you should you should kind of go and make these contacts. Because when you leave university, it's really difficult to kind of get into the industry. So how do you kind of get into the industry once you're kind of finished from uni? Often students feel really, really isolated. So now is the time, even if you don't know what you want to do, if you go and get volunteer at different kind of places, and you can kind of get experience and figure out what it is that you want to do, and you just get to know people. When I studied photography, I thought I would be a photographer, but after working at various places, I realised I actually want to work with photographers rather than be a photographer myself. And you meet like-minded people, your peers. When you're volunteering, you meet people who are in a similar kind of situation as you, and you keep in touch with them, and you know where it might lead throughout the years. I've known Emma for years from Jessup, and she also volunteered at Rhubarb with me, and so yeah, it's just really, really important. So one of the best advice I can give you today is volunteer and get experience. So after 2 years volunteering at Rhubarb, I was asked to in the third year in 2006, I was asked back as a freelancer to work on the portfolio review. So they actually employed me as a freelancer, and I'd worked there throughout the year in lots of different projects. So I really love doing this. I got to know more people. There's reviewers from all around the world. So Rhubarb was the first organisation that brought international portfolio reviews to the UK. It didn't really exist here before. So I met people from the US, from China, from around Europe, and I worked on lots of other projects as well. And then in 2007 and 2008, I got asked to work. This is some of the projects that we did at Rhubarb. But I got asked to work at a review in Berlin in 2007. So I went there in 2006 and 2007 for a week in November both days, because I'd worked in the portfolio review at Rhubarb. People sort of knew that I was gaining the skill, and I was really good at doing what I did. So I did that, and then a few years later, I got asked to work at PhotoFest in Houston, which is one of the UK's largest portfolio review. It's very intense, and I was there for 2 months, working on the review and working on the festival of photography and multimedia. So I was there for 2 months. So I came back to the UK after that, and this is 6 years after volunteering at Rhubarb. I got offered a job there as a full-time sort of permanent position that came because somebody had left the organisation. Now I didn't have to apply for it. I was offered it because I'd been working there for so many years, and they kind of knew my skills and what I could do, and it was a really great opportunity for me. I really loved it. At the same time, I was working at a walk-in centre. This is in reception, because you have to kind of pay the bills and do other things sometimes that you don't really know what you're doing sometimes. But the walk-in centre was something I did alongside my other jobs. So I also worked at a sea life centre for a little while, photographing people with Nemo. So it was not as exciting, but it was something. It's good to kind of work in your field. And then I kind of got made redundant in 2012 because Rhubarb lost arts council funding after the director she was not very well, so she kind of had to leave the organisation. And this is really tricky for me because I'd worked there for so many years, and I worked really hard for it. Then there's another festival called Format, which is based in Derby, and it's currently the UK's largest photo festival. And there's a job going for coordinator in 2012, and I applied for it. And I didn't get it, actually. I didn't have enough experience in the curatorial side of things, but I got offered another job managing the portfolio review, which I took. So I was offered this job just by going to the interview and not getting the job. I was offered it because I knew the director of Format, Louise Clements, who was she's still there. She's great. So then I was, after a few months of working part-time as a portfolio review coordinator, I was offered, I was also asked to work as a volunteer coordinator. So at the festival I did the portfolio review and I did manage the volunteers as well. I did a lot of volunteering my time, so I knew sort of what was involved in that. And then the festival's every 2 years, so I worked at the festival in 2013 as a portfolio review and volunteer coordinator, and then in the same year, the original job I'd gone for, the coordinator role, the person who took that job, Federica, is a temporary position, so she left, and then I got offered the job as a coordinator, so I kind of got promoted within working there for a year. So it was really brilliant. I worked there for 5 years. I worked on international exhibitions. That was in 2013 in South Korea. Just a few hours from Seoul. and that was last year in 2017 October in China, Beijing. So after working kind of volunteering and then getting into the photo industry and working in the different places, I worked in lots of different places at Format, and I'm really grateful for the opportunities I had there. I also worked in portfolio reviews in France and Germany and other places. So that's an image of an exhibition a European project that was taken in Spain. And the bottom one is Hamburg. So the kind of things I worked on as a talks and the conference, the UK's largest portfolio review, exhibitions, open calls. So last year for the festival we had over 1,000 entries from 63 countries. We had a catalogue, brochure, marketing, managing the team. So it was quite a massive role to organise a really big festival that had 100,000 visits over the 5-week period in 2017. It was the first time last year that we sold out of the portfolio review in the conference as well. So we were kind of getting better and better at Format. It was getting bigger and bigger every year. The biggest challenge, I think, was that it was a big festival, but it was a small team. So it's difficult to kind of work with when you have 2 or 3 people working on a key festival, and it's so massive. People expect that you're a massive team, but actually we're a very small team. The biggest achievement, I think, for me personally was I did a portfolio review in Amsterdam at the Unseen Festival. So Unseen is a really big photo fair. And last year, it's a project I kind of initiated myself. They don't have a portfolio review, but something that's kind of missing there. So I I got in touch with them and I organised this review, which I really, really enjoyed. It was a good review. And then I kind of decided to leave Format because I'd been there for 5 years and I'd done everything that I kind of wanted to do, and I wanted to do something different. So then I applied for this job, and I came across the creative project manager job for Curated Place in Manchester. So this is Curated Place. So who are we? What do we do? So we're a creative production agency, and we produce events, festivals, all kinds of things. You can read that if you like. It's a bit blurry, isn't it? So how do we get our jobs? What we do is we apply for tenders. A tender is like a job application, but for companies, organisations. If Coventry University had like a festival they wanted to produce, they could put out like an application to say, we want this music festival being produced, who can company come and run it for us? So that's what we kind of do. We apply for tenders. And then we also we get some money from the EU or wherever else, not the EU for much longer, but we find funding pots and we look for events and things that we want to do, and we apply for money and put on these events. So we do a huge variety of events. We do commissions, artist residencies, educational outreach as well, so we do a lot of things with schools and universities. We think it's important to kind of give back. We're also a small team. We recently expanded, so we're kind of like 6 members of the team now, and there were only 3 about a year ago. So I've only been at Curated Place since November, so it's not very long. I've worked on 2 kind of big events since I've been there. These are some of our clients. So I'll talk about a few of these. Whole 2017 UK State of Culture. You guys have got the UK State of Culture for 2021. So congrats. That's a really great opportunity for you all. You should kind of be thinking about what you can kind of do for that, because you should be able to get together and put something on, because there'll be a lot of things happening. Okay. So we're currently working on an event at Kew Gardens. You see Kew just there. I'll talk about that in a second. So we've also been nominated for the. Let's see. So this is the whole UK City of Culture. So Hull won the UK City of Culture for last year, and we approached them and said we want to do this project, North Atlantic Flux. It's a music festival over the Maybank holiday weekend, and they really liked the idea. So we brought in John Grant, who's a really big musician. I don't know if anyone's heard of him, but we asked him to kind of get in touch with some musicians that he knows and musicians that we know, and we got together to put on this really great festival. And it's really successful, one of the most successful events that happened in Hull. they say. And it's something that we can kind of carry on and do in other places as well. We've kind of called it North Atlantic Flux NAF, which is a bit naff, but it's catchy. So yeah, 47 acts across 6 venues. So we really work with musicians. We kind of approach musicians that we like, that we've heard of, and just say, do you want to go and do this? So we had a festival last year in September in Bury, and we had one this year, Spectra, in Aberdeen in February. And when we spoke to the artist last year, we said, well, can you do 2 festivals for us and we'll pay you a certain amount? And we kind of got them on board to do 2 festivals. So you have to kind of look at long-term things as well, not just look at the short-term things. So, okay. So yeah, for this we actually got the event team of the year at the Drum Awards, cultural event of the year, and best small event of the year, which is great that we are winning awards. So we know that we're doing a good job. So it's a Spectra, a festival in Aberdeen. So we've done the festival for 4 years. We applied for a tender for this from Aberdeen City Council. They'd already had a little light festival in 2014, and from 2015 to 18 we produced it. So we've got a tender for 4 years. So if you have a look at the numbers at the bottom there, it has 15 to 10,000 visitors. It's the first year that we did it, and this year there's 92,000, which is a really big increase from when they started. Last year we also introduced a conference alongside the Light Festival. So we had a 2-day conference with 2-day conference about arts and light and culture. And we did that again this year, and we had a really successful conference. It was a 2-day conference, which I kind of worked primarily on the conference, so I organised it, and we had speakers from all across Europe, including the First Lady of Iceland, who's one of our headline speakers. She works at a writers' retreat in Iceland. So this year we also introduced a music festival as part of Spectra. It's not something we've done before, but for Spectra, but we kind of felt there was a bit of a gap for it in the market for Aberdeen. And the tender's going up again for the next 5 years, and we kind of wanted to make a big impression, so we want to get the tender again for the next 5 years. But we'll see. It's not always easy working with different councils, and Aberdeen's quite a long way away from Manchester. We fly there rather than get a train, because it's quite north of Scotland, and so to work on events when you're not based in the city and you don't really know the people, it's difficult, but we actually made it work, and we have a really good relationship with Aberdeen City Council and all the different places within it. You have to work with the events team, the marketing team, and various other teams as well. So currently we're working on this project at Kew Gardens in London. Big day out with Peter Rabbit. So it's a bit different to the music festival we've just done, but that was really intense. This is a bit more relaxed and easygoing. Some photographs there in the bottom of the office where we basically produce little games and things, and kids go around Kew Gardens and they'll explore Peter Rabbit gardens and look at the little plant pots and make little bunny ears, and it's a bit more fun and relaxed than what we've been doing recently. But it's a good project for us because it kind of puts us on the map again. Kew Gardens is a great place to work. So, what's next for me? So I also offered so for format, my last job, I offered to manage the portfolio review for them freelance this year. So I'm working on that because when I left, the director was on maternity leave, so there's no one really that worked on format. I was the only person who worked on it all year round. So I offered to do the portfolio review on a freelance basis, which I'm working on now, and it's in April. And I also am an editor, UK editor for the Photo Exhibition Archive. So the Photo Exhibition Archive is an online resource of photo exhibitions around Europe and the world. So it's actually run by someone called Eva Gravayat, and I actually know her from Rhubarb. She was an intern there in 2006, and we've kept in touch over the years. She worked in Paris for a little while, now she's in Berlin. And she asked me to be in the UK editor, and I said yes. So I like to work on quite a few different projects, and it's good to kind of do that. There's nothing wrong with doing one thing and doing another thing. So although I'm completely working not in photography right now, I'm working with light festivals and music festivals and arts conferences and things. I still want to kind of keep my foot in the door with photography because it is one of my true passions. But I'm really learning a lot at Curated Place. I applied for a tender last week. So I wrote this tender it's like a workshop, a co-design workshop, working with communities in Manchester and Glasgow. I wrote it in 2 days, and I've never written a tender in 2 days, so I've never written a tender, so it's quite intense, but I'm learning. You're always going to be learning whatever you're working on, I think. I know you had your speaker that you had a few weeks ago, Ibrahim. I kind of saw a bit of his, look at his background, and it's really interesting what he's done, and he's so young and he's achieved that, but it's difficult to always know what you want to do when you're so young and when you're studying, especially. Because when you are studying, there's a whole broad variety of things that you can kind of go into, but you don't necessarily know what you want to go into. And it's okay to not know what you want to do, but you have to go and experience things and see things, and that's how you kind of know what you want to do. So myself, long term, I don't see myself at Curated Place long term. I see myself for the next few years. But I want to direct a multimedia arts organisation, working space for artists across different art forms, but specifically for women and also for people from ethnic minorities, because I think it's important for those people to have a voice and have kind of a space, because there isn't really that. And I look out here and I see a lot of women in the audience, students, but then I look at people in the media and there's a lot of men there. And it's something that has to change. It's changing in Hollywood, for example, but within the media industry in the UK, it's something that really needs to change. I think we need to kind of address it, and so hopefully you guys will achieve really brilliant things, and the men too, but there just needs to be a little bit of more of a balance. But yeah, so that's what I want to do. I want to have this art centre that works with young people and helps them achieve their goals, like a working space within arts, not just photography, graphic design, art, lots of different things. And that's kind of I'm kind of coming up with a 5-year goal now. So I'm 32 years old, and I'm coming up with a 5-year kind of goal for what I want to do for the next few years and how I want to achieve it. And I'm kind of learning how I can kind of get money to help achieve something like this. But yeah, that's me anyway, almost done. So what have you learned? Have you learned anything from my talk today, anyone?
It's good to get around and get lots of different experience from loads of places.
Yes, very good. Yes, volunteering is great. Thank you. Be good to others. So when you're volunteering and things, you should always try and, be good to people. Don't give up. Make sure you keep trying, because you just kind of need to, keep trying, because when you kind of leave here and you don't know what you're doing, and as long as you keep trying and don't give up, then you'll achieve something, definitely. And you have to work hard. Don't burn bridges. So I still work at Format, even though I had a bit of a tricky time there in my 5 years, because it was such a massive festival and such a small team, so it's a lot of stress and pressure. But I didn't really complain about it. I just carried on, working, and I tried to make changes. But I kept I'm in good terms with my manager, my ex-manager. Be open to change. So if you have an idea of what you want to do and it doesn't work out like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Just go with the flow, and take chances. So just do whatever you can. You're all young, so kind of go out there and see what you want to do, and work with each other, form collectives and things, and just go and create opportunities for yourself, rather than finding opportunities. You can create them as well. That's it. That's me. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Daniel. Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Daniel. Thank you, Shelby, for the computer laptop.
If anybody has any questions, then
Yeah.
this is a good spot to try and ask those now. So please raise your hand as usual. Before I start.
Shopping.
What skills do you think you learned most at university, even though you didn't stay there for very long?
What skills?
That like were helpful in the job?
I think at university, probably teamwork. So I did a lot of teamwork in university, and it kind of really helps you in the future because you have to work with other people a lot when you're working in real life. That's probably the biggest skill I learned. Is there a question up here somewhere? So, yeah, go on.
How do you plan on creating the multimedia business that you were talking about
How do I plan
for
to create
women
it?
of colour?
It's not just women of colour, but there will be a more specific kind of.
For minority?
Yeah. Good question. I don't know yet, but I think I either want to do it in Birmingham, because I'm from Birmingham, as I think there's a need for it, or Kent, because there's someone I worked with at Format. His name's Michael Sargent. He's a really brilliant, similar to what I do. He does a lot of events management and he's a curator. And we want to do it together. So we think collaborating is always important. I believe everyone is stronger together. You can't always, you can, but it's easier to collaborate with people. Not one person can do every single thing. I'm not a marketing person, so I won't market things myself. I'll get somebody else to do it. I did do this brilliant presentation by myself, by the way, which I'm not really good at PowerPoint, but I've done this. I think what we'll do is we'll find a space, either in Birmingham or Kent, or maybe even Manchester, because I live in Manchester now. And we have to get funding, because the hardest thing is funding. So there's lots of different avenues for funding. We can go to the Arts Council and ask them for money to build this organisation. But the first thing we have to do is find a space and have an idea of what the space is going to be. So as long as you have those kinds of, you know what you want to do and and then you kind of have to look at how you're going to do it. But it's what I have to look into now, really. I need to look into finding a space. There's a lot of abandoned spaces in Birmingham around Digbeth, and there's quite a few around in Coventry as well. But you just kind of have to find a space and have an idea what you want to do. And there is a gap in the market for that kind of thing, especially in Birmingham. So yeah, that's what we want to do. Yes.
How different do you feel like Birmingham and Manchester are when it comes to creative industries, especially as a woman yourself, also Asian? So how different do you feel like it is, like in the two separate
I think
cities? Obviously both big.
yeah, Manchester I think is a lot more creative. There's a lot going on in Manchester than Birmingham. And Birmingham is good as well, but I think it's because Birmingham's quite big. There's a lot of areas that can be kind of. I think it's kind of missing out on video. Sorry, sorry, 1 second. It can be a lot better than it is, Birmingham. You look at Digbeth, it's full of warehouses and there's some really nice galleries and places there, but nobody visits them because nothing's really happening. But then you go to Manchester and somewhere like the Northern Quarter, and it's just full of people in the arts and people in different areas, and it's just very different. But I think with the women and Asians and people from ethnic minorities in the arts is just lacking. And the conference I did this year for Spectra in February, I noticed quite late on actually that there was nobody there that represented an ethnic minority, and I felt really bad about that, and it made me feel really. It was something I was not proud of. But I mean, I didn't work on it from the start. It was worked on from somebody else. Kind of brought in all the speakers, and I kind of carried it on when I was started working in November. But I should have done more to kind of include a broader range of people. But I think in the arts it's always difficult. But there are people that I know that I work with, photographers, and who are Asian and other from Asia and stuff. And you just kind of have to find them and work with them and give them an opportunity to kind of work with you. Does that answer the question? Kind of.
What was your favourite location when you were there traveling?
Favourite location? I really loved Houston. So I had a really good time there. but I also really like South Korea. I did Beijing was great as well, my latest one. But Beijing is massive. It's like it's a city of 20 million people. It's crazy. But yeah, I think probably South Korea and Houston are my favourite places. But there's some places around Europe that are really beautiful as well. It's nice that I get to travel with work. It's one of the parts of the jobs that I love. Yep.
What would you say is the biggest drawback for being in this field?
Biggest drawback? Probably there's not a lot of money in it, in the arts anyway. I think with media you're a bit luckier in a sense that there is a bit more money, and but yes, I don't get paid. I get paid a good amount, but if I was in marketing or business something, I'd be getting paid a lot more for where I am right now. But you just kind of have to keep trying, and you have to work hard for yourself. And it's harder for women than it is for men, and yeah. Yes.
Just a quick question. At the very beginning, it showed that the project is co-funded by the European Union.
Yeah.
And you just said that you're not getting paid as much as you wanted to.
Yeah.
Would you think that this will affect you when Brexit happens?
I think definitely. I think the Creative Europe funding has funded so many arts projects around the UK. And I mean, I'm not a fan of Brexit, and I think most people in the arts shouldn't be. Most people generally shouldn't be, but it's terrible. We've received so much funding. I have in all my jobs that I've worked at Rhubarb, at Format, at Curated Place, we've always had funding from Europe. And like I said, we're stronger together, and that includes with Europe. But it's unfortunate that Brexit's happening. Pardon?
No, but I mean, like, UK might spread their budget better.
What's that? Sorry.
No, I was thinking that they might spread it.
Who might spread their budget?
Like UK government, like
Yeah.
put more budget into art and culture.
Well, have they ever done that? No. The arts and culture get less and less money, unfortunately. Yeah, arts and culture is last. You know, there's other things that are bad as well. Education isn't helping. And Emma.
When you were volunteering just really early on, one of the really good things with that was that you were able to make your face known and remembered, and that you were able to kind of show what skills you have. So now you're kind of almost on the other side of that, and you've got people that are kind of wanting you to remember them. Do you see what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So what are the kind of things that make you remember somebody when they're kind of volunteering or gaining experience with the things that you do? What are the kind of characteristics that they have?
I think the one of the most important things when you're volunteering is to use your initiative. Because so many volunteers do not use their initiative for very, very basic things. I know you're a volunteer and you have to kind of, you're not really sure what you're doing sometimes, but if you don't go there and use your initiative and show that you're hardworking, then you're not going to be remembered. But you have to make the most of every opportunity when you're a volunteer. So when you're sitting in a gallery, watching, vigilating an exhibition, and instead of just sitting there getting bored, you speak to people who come in, because you don't know who these people are. There could be somebody really important that you can make contacts with. So I just find the volunteers that I work with recently have just been really, really lazy and not willing to kind of commit themselves, but you have to really, really commit yourselves if you want to be serious about working in this industry and any industry really.
So do you feel like working in different countries, so it's like the exhibitions in different countries, and they gave you a different experience they got in England, like due to the types of cultures that you work with abroad compared to in England?
Yeah, it's very different in lots of different countries. Yeah, it's if you go to South Korea to do an exhibition, they're absolutely amazing. They'll just hang the work for you before you even tell them where you want it to go. I think we can learn a lot from different countries and different cultures, and the recent exhibition I did in China, there was a problem with some of the work that was printed and stuff, but it's something that we couldn't really control. So it's always difficult when you're working with people in different countries, especially if there's a language barrier. So it's always wonderful to work with other people, but it can be tricky as well. It's not always easy. There's a lot of questions there.
I'm loving them.
What happened?
Sometimes it's just me after me after me.
Any more questions?
In which case,
That's
it's
fine.
going to be just me.
Okay.
You talk quite a few times about the team that you work in, the team being 6 people, it used to be 3 people. How do you work kind of on a day-to-day basis within your role in that team? Kind of what are the day-to-day tasks that fall to you as a creative project manager, and how does that work in that kind of team?
So it's very varied. At Curated Place especially, because I'm quite new, I didn't really know what to expect and what I'd be working on. So when I first started working there, I was told I'd work on the conference. So it was sort of the first few weeks I'd spend time working on the conference, getting to know the speakers and getting the information and things. In the last 2 weeks, what I've done is it's a bit different. So I worked a little bit on Kew Gardens. So we have everybody has a different kind of role within the company, but everyone kind of helps each other. So I'm working at Kew Gardens in a few weeks. So I'm going to be some of the team will go in and set up and stuff, and then I'll be facilitating the workshops and things. So when you get people coming and making the little bunny ears, just be on hand to make sure that everything's okay and people know what they're doing. And then the other day I was writing a tender, so I spent 3 days writing this tender. And then I was working on this presentation. And next week I'm doing a talk at, not a talk, it's like an employer pop-up session at Manchester University. So every day is varied. I'm also writing a few case studies about previous projects that we've done, so we can present that for future tenders. Next week is a conference at the Lowry in Manchester about arts, so I'm going to be going to that. So it's very varied. But I could go into the office next week, and then my boss Andy Bryden's the director of Curated Place. He might say, "Oh, can you work on this for me?" and I'll work on that. But I would sort of know. At the moment,
you really appreciate that variety?
I love the variety. Yeah, I don't like working in. Well, I don't work in an office. I work in a warehouse, and it's quite cold, so I don't really like and appreciate. But because it's like a studio space, we have a laser cutter there, so we do a lot of lasering stuff, and it gets quite loud. And we always. I don't work 9 to 5. I work normally 10 to 6 or 10:15. So I'm always late till 6 or 7. It's quite easygoing and relaxed and flexible. A lot of jobs in the arts are like that. They're quite flexible, and so I kind of enjoy not knowing what I'm going to be doing. But it's always busy. It's always things to do.
Do you find the precarious nature of the projects and having to constantly be writing bids and kind of going for different pieces of work, is that one of the negative sides of the job, or is that just something that...
It's one of the sides that I least appreciate. But
everyone I know who's worked in either charity or arts funding has found that really mentally a difficult thing to be dealing with, not knowing in 4 years' time if they're necessarily, or a year's time, going to be in the same kind of role and doing the same thing.
It's difficult. I mean, we did Hull, North Atlantic Flux, and we did Spectra, and we don't know if we're getting Spectra for the next 5 years. It hasn't even gone out for tender yet, so it'll go out for tender in a few months, and then we'll find out in a few months later. So we're the best people for it because we have experience, but somebody else amazing might come along, we don't know. And then for the project in Hull, they said they want to come back this year and do something later on this year, but nothing's been completely confirmed, so it's always kind of wondering what the next project is going to be. Kew Gardens we got a few months ago. We applied for tender for that as well. But they encouraged us to apply because we'd done an event there before, which they really liked.
And that's where your networking and constant ability to keep in the good books of people you've worked with previously and make sure you attend their events and do things that aren't necessarily part of your role, but allow you to keep the contacts and networks that are hugely integral to something like this.
Yeah, definitely. Contacts is really important, and you have to kind of work. Like if you work hard, then and you show that you're committed. Like we don't know anything about Peter Rabbit, but I mean he goes and he loses a carrot or something. The story is not very interesting, the Peter Rabbit story, but you have to kind of find ways to make it interesting. The previous year we worked on a Moomins project for Easter, and I grew up in Moomins. I love Moomins. I don't actually know what it's about either, but it's a lot more interesting than Peter Rabbit, so we kind of have to work hard to kind of find creative ways of doing things and just do our best. And that's why we keep winning awards as well, because we're good at what we do. We're good at organising and presenting events and festivals.
Thank you very much.
It's all right.
Anybody else?
I'm just going to offer some support for Peter Rabbit.
Oh yes, go on.
I grew up with Peter Rabbit as a kid, so I love Peter Rabbit.
You should come and visit the Kew Gardens.
I think I'm...
Maybe Just me being from Coventry, but I didn't grow up with any kind of cartoon
Anything.
fictional characters. I lived next door.
That's really sad. That's terrible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.